Hello and welcome to this week's Coffee Chat. I'm joined again with Simon and Keely. We've kind of got used to this 3 being an every week thing now. Keely's succumbed to our pressure.
Filming Saturday, didn't you? Which I think is going to form
at some point.
A slightly different Coffee Chat.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the viewers about that, or is it secret?
It might not even be on this channel.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know, but it might be. Our breakaway channel is just making some...
Yeah.
No, yeah, we on Saturday, we had a couple of guys from Glow come and join us.
Global Generation
Church in Margate.
Okay, we're going to full name it and everything.
Well, some people may not know. They might think it's like some sort of candle. Yeah, company.
Okay, I didn't even know it's called Global Generation, by the way.
Well, it's Global
Generation. I would have just... Anyway, a church in Ramsgate and Margate are the same things to me.
All over this.
I'm doing really well. They came to join us for some worship stuff. We did some worship recording with them, which was amazing actually to have some guys from another church come and join us and to work with them and to chat about worship with them. But we sat down and did a kind of coffee chat, which we probably will release on this channel at some point. I'm not sure when.
Okay.
But kind of talking about worship during the lockdown.
It wasn't as funny as ours, was it?
Nowhere near.
No.
Nowhere near.
No.
Although we did have an interesting
smile?
conversation. I didn't smile once. No. We had an interesting conversation, which I'm going to ask you this question now. How do you cut a sandwich? Do you cut it into rectangles, squares, or triangles?
Rectangles. For adults. Are you talking for children?
No.
For yourself?
For yourself.
Just
Or do you
in
just
half,
not cut
just
it
in
at all?
Rectangles.
Just in half, into 2
Well, okay, so
but
these
if I
guys...
wanted to be a bit posh,
Triangles were what was probably the consensus that they were giving. Anyway,
good.
But yeah, we filmed something with them, so that will go out at some point, talking about worship and what it looked like at Glow Gem, what it looked like here, and kind of the reasons why it might have looked a certain way, which is cool. But yeah, how are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you. Yeah, had a good weekend.
Really well. My sister and her family have been down for a few days, not staying with us, staying in a self-contained
Oh
Airbnb.
my life! How many times have people been able to socially distance?
Of course,
socially distance.
I know, but that's because you don't want all the.
You don't want people to be like
the emails and the haters. No, they came down for a few days. They came down for a few days to see my mum and dad and us, and it was just really lovely. It just felt like the 9 months that we hadn't seen them just melted away, which was lovely. So it felt like. We were saying, it feels like it's so long since you haven't seen them, but then as soon as you do, it feels like you only saw them yesterday. Yeah. Very bizarre, but really special and lovely. Yeah. And I took her over to recall them.
Oh, did you? I was about to ask that.
It was hilarious. I hope she's not watching this. The next day, she said, right, me and her went for a walk on Friday, I think, and then she said, right, I'm going to take the kids, really get them into it. The kids are 18, 15 and 12. And I'm gonna help them look for shark's teeth. Anyway, then they sent us a picture that Hannah had found a shark's tooth, and she was so excited. And even I thought it was like a little baby shark's tooth until Simon looked at the picture and it wasn't. What was it?
It was a tip. Sorry, mate. It was a tip.
Simon, why'd you have to ruin their day?
I know it did because it went up and up.
I was torn.
I even said she was part of
the. I keep the ruse going. Yeah. It was the tip of a crab's claw.
I had to look properly at it on the photo, and it had little serrations, and it was definitely a crab's claw. So she joined the club, and then she had to get kicked out.
It was a very short membership.
I don't think I'd be able to
it was awful.
know that it wasn't a... The problem is, especially if they've been certain, how long were they looking for one? Because that's so sad. That makes me feel really sad.
It was always like, yeah, hey, woohoo, in the group. Like, well, I was like, guys, sorry.
Oh.
I did literally say you're now part of an elite club, and then
and then you had to say you're no longer part of this elite club.
Your membership has been rescinded.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that was funny.
Funny, not funny. Yeah.
Not funny for them.
It sounds quite a sad.
We sent them a picture of our 4 sharks' teeth to give us a
So this is what you're looking for.
This is what you're looking for.
Not the pesky crab.
We got all 4 of them in one day.
Yeah.
Oh dear, that is.
So that was that. So that was the weekend.
Yeah. Did you have any? Not gone to a pub yet?
No.
Got my road bike out. Went for a ride with young Noah, who's not seen anymore. Yeah, that's good. So
nice.
Got off the Swift and got on the road.
I'm a little bit disappointed that you guys, it's been 2 weeks now almost, and you've still not gone to a pub.
We weren't massive pub goers before.
Yeah.
Okay, but do you not ever want to go for a drink somewhere?
He has a drink
Keely
at
doesn't
home.
drink.
No, I don't drink.
You don't drink Coke?
Anything.
Doesn't drink anything fizzy. doesn't drink anything
I
alcoholic.
only drink water, really, don't I? So it is a waste of money. I'm not saying we never will. We're more like we'd go for a coffee somewhere.
But it's more the atmosphere, isn't it?
Outside in the freezing cold, not
Yeah.
good for me.
No, so far
Well,
it's
you
not-
do get cold very easily as well, don't you?
Exactly.
So yeah, the pub garden, the beer garden has never been a big
I will
thing.
in the summer, yes, not quite yet. I'm not that desperate for a water.
And we can sit in our own garden with the pints. So it's-
Yeah,
And
but
he does do that.
yeah.
so.
yeah, me and Emma for the first time yesterday, because we had our garden done last week. In terms of when I say we had it done, it was just mud, and now it's grass and patio.
Nice.
So yesterday for the first time we went out, had a drink out on the
See, in
on
your
the
own
patio,
garden.
in the garden,
Yeah,
and that was quite
exactly,
nice. That was quite nice.
exactly.
But I feel like it's not like the occasion of going to a pub.
With friends is different.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
If you're going with your friends somewhere, but even so, it is still too cold for me to be sitting outside. I'm sorry, I sound like an old lady.
Great. Well, this is really exciting.
Yeah, moving on.
Moving on. Sunday, Keely, you spoke brilliantly on loss, and in the second week of the Emerge series, looking at loss and grief and how we deal with that. Do you want to give a little bit of a...
Uplifting sermon.
It was so uplifting, yeah. It genuinely didn't feel
Depressing.
a hard listen, kind of.
I was a bit worried about that.
No, it didn't. It didn't feel that
when
at all.
Well, obviously we put the Emerge series together, and to be fair, it was me who put my hand up, wasn't it? Do you remember? And I said, I'll do that one about grief and loss, and I was thinking, oh great, this is going to be a tough one to do, and it's the second one in the series, and this is going to take us down. But actually, although we were talking about grief and loss and the need to deal with our losses from lockdown, from the last year, and I do feel that there's a lot of positive hope within that, because if we're following Jesus, then you bring that grief to him rather than just go down and wallow, and just it wasn't just about acknowledging your grief and wallowing in it, it was about exchanging that pain, wasn't it, with God. So I had a lot of comments, and I think it's just where people are at. I think a lot of people were like, some were very they knew they had grief. They were like, I'm so in this, I know I have, and I know I need to deal with it. Some people like, I hadn't realised, like there was stuff that they were being stirred about yesterday, on Sunday, whenever this goes out, that they were like, wow, I've realised I've got to do some business with God, because I'm carrying a lot of stuff and I haven't really thought about it. So there were people at lots of different stages. So I think it was very thought-provoking. Hopefully just gave some practical tools on what to do next.
Yeah, I felt it came really nicely off the back of what Simon was saying last week on the what we give to others. What was the phrase again? Do you remember the phrase? Oh, I put you on the spot.
The state we're in is the state we give to others.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, and it kind of went quite nicely with that, didn't it?
Yeah, because if we don't deal with it, what I was saying at the beginning, if we don't deal with the loss, then that's what's going to be coming out to other people, that pain and that. And I also talked a bit about what we do to medicate our losses and our pain, all the things we've probably done over lockdown, like binge watch TV far too much, and shopping online, and food, and addictions that can come, which do numb us, but they're not the real way to deal with grief. So it was a bit of a challenge to all of us, wasn't it, to say, if we can do this well, our hearts will grow and enlarge, and we will have greater capacity for each other too. So yeah, I thought it was not that I did a great job, but I thought actually the topic was really well received by the church, and we talked about.
And you also did do. I was saying, not to embarrass you, but I do think it was the best talk I've heard on that topic before. It was just really, it was really real, and really, we were so in that place. And I love how one of the things you were talking about is how immediately when we hear about loss and grief, I'd only think about people that have died and I have had people close to me during COVID that have died, but actually there are more losses than that we've had over this time. Do you wanna just, for those that haven't seen Sunday's Talk, talk about some losses that we may have experienced?
Is it me or you?
Anyone.
I think freedom was the top one, wasn't it? It's the sense of loss of freedom, loss of the ability to plan, loss of the ability to make choice. I think all those are really significant freedoms, even though we can. I think what you were saying, let's not gloss over them. Let's not sort of skip to activity and the sense of we've come out of lockdown, and therefore, just move on. I think the key thing was about processing, wasn't it?
There was I talked about children who've especially our young people who I think haven't had opportunities to do the things, their natural rites of passages, you know, when they're growing up as teenagers, end of year stuff and graduations, and you know, and all of us have had celebrations that have been cancelled. You obviously had your wedding that was totally, you know, changed, and that's lost, you know, and you have to acknowledge, although it was amazing, you know, everybody's had things that they thought were going to happen that didn't happen. So I think it was more about just saying, you know, stop and think. Like you say, we often think loss and grief is about death of a loved one or a friend, and actually life is a series of losses, and we do need to get used to dealing with them and processing them well, so that we don't end up with just a whole pile of them causing us to not be great people.
So how do we do that? How do we deal with loss? Again, I know you talked about it yesterday, and I don't want us to just repeat everything from yesterday, but I think it is, you know, important reminder of the practical things, because what we don't want is people to watch on a Sunday and kind of get on with everything. But what are some of those practical ways that we can deal with
well, I think acknowledging them first of all. I think that's really important, to sit down and actually spend time intentionally thinking about, maybe you need to ask God, or just, you know, have a think back over there and think, you know, what are the losses, and write them down. I think there's an intentionality when you write things down, you can see them and it makes you, you know, them very visible, doesn't it? And you can go, okay, I need to systematically go through these. So acknowledge that you've got them, don't dismiss them. And then bring the pain to God. We talked about the need to cry, lament, you know, look at the Psalms, find some scripture that resonates with how you're feeling if you don't know what to say. So have that period of time where you are grieving and telling God that you're angry, maybe you're disappointed, and I was saying that God's very able to take all of our feelings. So have that process where you literally cry and do what you need to do. And then wait in God's presence for him to come and heal you. And I talked about this exchange, you know, that God promises us that when we give him our stuff, as it were, our grief, our loss, our pain, our disappointment, he then gives us his life in abundance. And so that's a really important step when you're following Jesus, to remember, you know, it is giving God our grief, but allowing him to heal. And that's an amazing exchange. And then it was, I can't remember the last two, it was asking God to enlarge our hearts. And I did talk a little bit about, I say we, it was me, we as a church talked about, just being a listening person and realising we're all in this together. And I think that's probably why it resonated, because you can do a sermon on grief and there might only be a few people who are going through loss. This felt different because we've all gone through loss at different levels, and that probably why it landed a bit more. So it felt like a rally for the church to say, let's be here for one another, recognising we're all on different parts of this journey of grief, learn to listen, learn to pray for one another, and do it for yourself too. So there was lots of practical tools, so I would recommend, if you can, listen to it online. It's probably better in the room, but it's all online as well.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I'm talking about like 10 weeks ago now, I was preparing a sermon that was about enduring faith, and I kind of felt like God was saying to me in that space that one of the ways that our faith can endure best is when we're real with God, and we don't try and hide things from God or shut God out of certain things in our life, and we don't try and go, you know, I'm going to put on a smile, be happy and pretend that everything's good and be a good Christian boy, but instead realising that God's big enough to take these things. God's big enough for us to even be angry at him, to wrestle with him. We see it in scripture, people wrestle with God, and that there's even moments where God changes his mind from people wrestling with God.
We need to be reminded of that, don't we? Because I think, you know, so often we think we just need to put on that smile and everything's okay, and we don't want a church like that, do we? We want a church where there's absolute real emotions.
Absolutely,
You know, people can be happy, they can be sad, and everything in between, and we all support and love each other as we're all going through those things, because that's real life. And you know,
and we struggle to talk as a church,
as men. I'll put a little challenge out to men, didn't I? Which I do think is a really little helpful thing. So I heard this from watching a documentary. It was actually Roman Kemp. I don't know if anybody saw that documentary. His friend had killed themselves, and he'd done a lot of research about mental health, and he was saying that for men there's a lot of research that if you say to a friend, hey, are you okay, and they say yeah, I'm fine, to go again and say, are you really okay? And in that moment a lot of conversations then turn and become very real and honest. So if you've got a friend who you're suspecting just isn't quite right, you know, and you say, are you okay, and they say yeah, I'm fine, just go again for the second time and say, are you really okay? And often they will say, well, actually, and that then opens up a conversation. So it's a really helpful tool.
Really practical
Yeah.
challenge. For,
Yeah,
for-
ask twice.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, let's leave this coffee chat there.
Great.
Yeah. Cool.
See you soon.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.